challenge for these existing organizations by next decade, most of these will become obsolete.
With AI, there's just so much opportunity on the table, which comes with a little bit of risk taking.
So now we're at the point of creating superhuman capabilities.
Is AI actually driving some business values?
What AI is giving right now for people is to really rethink about the opportunity. It's the same old problem, newer solution. And that's what tech debt is. You're in the right era with the right time. If you're building something now, you're building for the future.
Hi, Lenin. Really nice to have you with us. We're doing this for the first time, but the idea is that, like you've seen the world in a lot deeper ways than we ever could have in terms of your experience across so many different companies, including startups, across functions, all the way from data analytics to IT to now in your role as CBO of Atomic Work. And as a startup, we're just now trying to enter that world, right? So we want to see the world from your perspective in sort of like quick, short 10 questions, right? Harsh will try to keep score to 10 so that we can manage time, but
Sure.
that's sort of the idea.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me, and I'm very excited for what it is that TruPeer is doing, and happy to be here to engage with you guys.
Great. I think the first question that we all had on our minds is that yours is actually one of the most interesting career trajectories we've seen, like in how your roles have evolved, and you've seen the IT side of the world, and now you've seen the business side of the world, right? So what are some misconceptions that these two sides of the world have about each other?
Oh, great question. I think when I was in IT, in the olden days when we first entered, it was not about business, it was more about technology. So we wanted to make the technology work because everything was always about how to make technology function for the business, but it was predominantly core is IT is segregated in its own space. It was always thought as IT always have to do something, and the business is always looking for IT to do something. So it's more like an enabler to some degree. So for the last 3 decades, when the first time IT has become an important part to drive technology in the organizations, it was not meant for employees to become highly productive or anything like that. The idea was just make it work. Technology should work. That's the idea. And CIOs and others, all of the people were always building things and making things work. And if these things don't work, they were like, okay, that's all I can do, right? So there's a limitation. But what's happening now, with the tech is advanced, we as humans have matured, adapting to the changes, learning faster. It's becoming more business driven. Mm-hmm. So that means if you bring a technology, it has to be business friendly. It has to be employee friendly. It has to be justified for what it is worth in the organization. Why do you need it? So that maturity also came with the technology adoptions, and also the evolution of technology itself made us really see the value of why we need something in the organization to begin with. So I'm kind of seeing the trend of evolution of making technology work to now making business with the technology to run.
Yeah.
Right? So we kind of went from crawling to walking to now running. So eventually we'll also be flying with technology. So I think that is where we are in the AI age, and I would say as a maturity.
Got it. And I think the other interesting angle here is that you've also seen both sides of the coin in terms of you being a CIO as a buyer of technology versus now you are CBO of a startup and you need to sell technology, right? Yeah. So what are you seeing in terms of evolving vendor relationships, and like how has your understanding changed about that?
So even though I was buyer and on the one side, now I am on the other side to sell. The concept for me was the same in the sense that you need to understand the buyer, and if you're selling, that's important for you. But if you are a buyer, you need to understand the seller, because a negotiation of whatever you're buying starts from the get-go of why you need that and all of that stuff. So me being on one end really helped. So I was only worried about why I am buying it for the organization. I'd never cared about the other side because initially it was all about a transaction. But then when you start building relationship with people who are actually building those, the perception changed. So when you are a startup and you've grown into in a large organization, your understanding is a bit different from people who are actually entrenched themselves in a large organization might not be thinking what the other person is really going through. Why are they selling? Your opinions might be different. I think why I'm advocating buyers now to spend more time with the sellers, not for the transaction purposes, but building a relationship that is going to help them understand why they're building something and how what they're building is actually going to be useful to you, not now, but into the future.
Yeah.
See, the problem when you're buying a matured software, you don't actually care about how it is built, who built it. Nobody really cares about it because you just go and buy it and then use it and then that's it. There is no relationship, right?
Right.
But when you're buying software now from a founder in early stages, you now have to do a lot of scrutiny,
Right.
and understanding who the founder is, how much money they have, viability, sustainability, growth, and why are they doing it? Can I rely on them? So the CIO's tendency is typically risk-averse, right? Nobody wants to really buy something risky. And so now coming on the other side, I'm actually now applying what I used to think in trying to work with CIOs, why it is important for them to build a relationship with the founders, and so that you don't have to really wait until the software becomes better, where you're only doing a transaction. But if you now build that relationship, you might also become an advisor. You could also help them grow, and the credit will become where you're giving back something, and you could also grow with it. Also, there's a satisfaction that I used to have whenever I used to help a founder before. And going on the other side now, I'm expecting the CIOs to have the similar thing, and that's something that I'm advocating through my being a CBO and doing this thought leadership and sitting down with the CIOs and explaining to them why they should give time to the founders and learn a little bit more about why they're building it and how that is going to help you.
Absolutely, I can completely attest to that. Like, Lenin has actually been that conduit almost for the startup world to actually interface with the CIO world and them getting to understand each other, like you're saying, right? I think like one of the things, like you mentioned, like the CIO role is typically meant to be risk averse, but with AI, there's just so much opportunity on the table, and they obviously have to be open to innovation, which comes with a little bit of this risk taking. So, like, how are you seeing CIOs actually tackle that? Like, is there actually still a lot of risk aversion, or are they open to?
So what happened 2 decades ago when everything is installed on the computers, there was nothing really leaving, very small network controlled. You do not have these many problems because the maturity or opportunity for anyone to really penetrate those type of networks was hard. Once it has become open web, open network, global, we've also opened a lot of doors that we didn't know open, right? So when the organizations are now introducing technology, it's not about just use of the technology, it's also protecting your own organization, because by introducing that technology now, you're introducing certain risks that you don't know. And that's why CIOs are more cautious around, not just because they don't like it. Even if you like it, sometimes you can't employ it, you can't deploy it. And that's not because they don't want it, it's just because they can't, because of the restrictions, certain guidelines, governance, compliance, so many things that needs to be part of the ecosystem. That is really why the CIOs are more methodical conscience around why they should introduce certain technology in the organization. And that's really the thing. But that is by nature because their jobs are on the line. If they introduce certain things, they have to justify.
Right.
And that's one of the other reasons so many things, policies and other things were introduced to help the CIOs to make those decisions, not by taking ownership of all of these things on their own. Instead, they're bringing a whole ecosystem to support them. So that's where procurement comes in, security comes in, the infrastructure teams come in. Everybody is evaluating the viability of a solution in those so many different things. Eventually, the decision is going to be made.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And like when it comes to like viability, right? Like that point around, like there's still a lot of conversation around, okay, at the enterprise level, is AI just good enough for pilots, or is it actually driving some business value? So what are you seeing?
So as I was mentioning earlier, the maturity is really critical. The maturity of both is critical, the buyer and the seller. What is important in newer technologies is trust. Trust that it works, trust that it is secure, trust that it is reliable, and also is going to make things better than worse. And that takes time. There is going to be hesitation. There is definitely going to be some sort of good, bad, and ugly situations of people taking the risk that didn't pay off. Again, if you make those decisions with certain guardrails, then people who are in that process protected on both sides. Otherwise, things can be worse, right? So yeah, I think more about what use cases because of early stages, and then what return on that investments that you're making. Then not everything is about ROI. So that's why sometimes people talk about ROI. Is this really a growth driver? How are you going to justify employee empowerment? How are you going to justify something that is not tangible for you to measure at this early? Are you going to sit out? Or are you going to try? That all depends on the organizations. And that's why I think startups need to understand that if a buyer is hesitant, not because they don't want it, potentially they just can't. And what is that factor is really important. And that's why choosing the right ICP, or in this case, your ideal customer, and also product market fit, what you're trying to work with, and making it easy for them to experiment, making it easy for them to use is really, really critical.
Absolutely.
And then learn fast and then deploy fast.
Like understand what matters to them and then deliver backwards. I'd like to switch gears a little bit because there's this other side of you, which, which is also very fascinating about pulling together so many different people from different spheres of knowledge, expertise, and just bringing them together on shared goals, right? So like, what's your vision for this global CIO circle, and how did it come about?
I've always had this notion of bringing people together. I like socializing, I like networking. So when I started interacting with founders, when I became an investor, an advisor, and I thought opportunity came not because somebody asked me, it's just because I asked people, like, how can I do this? And how can I become an investor? How can I advise? So same thing is happening for people who did not have that opportunity to do, and they didn't even know that there is an opportunity exists for them to become an advisor to startup. They can invest into startups. There is this notion of investing startups is a VC's business, let them do it, but then you are sitting out and everything else is happening around the world, and how are you going to get involved in some of these things? And so I think there's a way to do that. And so I wanted to really understand what that is. So once I figured that out, I wanted to bring it to the people. And that's how it started. Initially, we were just doing with one or two founders. It looks like this butterfly loves the conversation that we're having here.
And she wants to be a part.
Yeah. And so I think so what happened is that network started create, around me. And once I came out from Quotient, I've kind of decided to go into it just as a hobby. And a friend of mine basically said, let's start a syndicate. and to bring and then start helping startups. And I was doing one-on-one, but now it had become a movement, and that picked up, and we started investing, advising, and it picked up further. And then then I started syndicating it, and now why not just create a circle and like-minded people that want to engage founders and become advisors, angel invest, um, and those are all the circle formation was. We did it in a smaller way last year, and there was significant interest. So then I decided to create the circle. Why not bring all of them together and bring the portfolio of companies and VCs and who share the same interests to come? And that's what Global CIO Circle is.
Yeah, like we are also really excited about being a part of this. Like we keep looking for such platforms, right? Like where we can actually tell people about what we're doing and how we're already helping CIOs.
Yeah.
So like 200 of the, I think 200 of the world's biggest companies, CIOs are coming together here.
Yeah.
So it's really, really, really interesting. So, like one thing that the team was also really fascinated about was the fact that you seem to know everybody and anybody, right? Like you have such a wide and deep network. So what's the secret sauce there? Like how is it that you're able to build such sustainable relationships with so many different people?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's a lot of energy, a lot of time goes into it. But I did put it, as part of my thing. I always like to have it, and I feel like sometimes I'm not actually doing enough networking. But I think what is important when it becomes part of you, you don't feel like you're doing it, and it just naturally happens. And that is really what is going on now. I think it's the LinkedIn ecosystem, and Reid, had this vision that the network impact from your first degree to second degree to third degree, and that is really where we are right now. And LinkedIn evolution is really now paying off, because all of those decade to 2 decade old people who have been on LinkedIn that have not done anything with it are still the same. But those who understood how networking really works, reaching out to people and offering them help is the first thing to do. And I always offered my help, and I basically said, hey, if you need anything, I never sought out anything else. And that's how I started building my network. Obviously, the payback period will come where I could really ask for when I need something as a favor. But usually, it's what's most important thing about this is when people understand you, you don't have to explain too much, right? The purpose is very simple. The reason to network is very simple. And at some point, they also see the value, and it's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And I think that is the reason the circle is evolving, and that is the reason people are wanting to come to the network and also to these events. For me, it's all about founders, and I tell the same thing to all of the executives joining. We're here to just make sure that they benefit from us because we've seen it, they haven't. How can we give back? And in return, you advise. And you get to an opportunity to invest when there is an opportunity to invest. If not, we'll continue to grow and open the doors and open the opportunities for them, because they're doing so much. If we can speed up that acceleration of growth by doing a little bit, it goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also noticed that you have an open calendar, like anybody can just come and talk to you. Is there a reason why you did that?
So the reason is because if people don't know how to reach out to you, then they're like waiting, like, how am I supposed to talk to this guy? What to do? And so why not, if you really want people to reach you, there's no point in keeping the calendar closed. So one of the reasons I started doing that is so that people can reach, and then I'll find out what the purpose is. And there's a notion like within the 5, 10, 15 minutes, is this something that you're going to continue further, or that's the end of the road. And so I think it's important for them. And I also know that rejection is another thing nobody wants. So if you reach out for a connection on LinkedIn, or somebody that you want to talk to, and they've never paid attention to you, but if you do the same thing to others, they might be feeling the same way too. So I have this notion that if I know somebody is doing this to me, I don't want to give the same thing to somebody else. That doesn't mean I'm actually accepting everybody.
Yeah.
It's also very deliberate, and that's important, because at some point you want to make sure the quality important, conversations and time. So I think why people tend to restrict themselves is they dedicate certain time of their calendar for networking or doing things when they have, but then they're busy with other things, and so eventually that takes over and you won't be able to. So give an example, when I was just doing investments and I was not really doing anything else, I was playing golf. So now I don't. It's just because you're so busy with everything else, so you just have to give up something.
Yeah.
So I think people give up their time because they have to do other things. And so I think that is one of the things naturally happen. Obviously, this is open now, but eventually it probably won't.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess a lot of people will just grab the opportunity after hearing this. But I think just sort of like looking a little bit into the future, right? We were just chatting before this that you've seen all the shifts in technology, all the way from on-prem to then cloud, even social as a wave with gaming, and like now with AI. So what excites you the most about this, and like what is different about this time?
Yeah, so I was one of the luckiest in terms, and when I say lucky, so there's a definition for luck, is that you need to be at the right time in the right place. Then things happen, then you ride the wave. So I think that is exactly what happened with me. Obviously there is some work involved in it, but I think the 3 decades that I've had in my career, I think I've seen how I've matured. I've seen how organizations matured. I've seen also the employees have matured. And then I've also seen how technology matured, and also how people who build companies have also matured. It's just a natural evolution. It's just because when you have nothing, you end up doing a lot of it. But when you start putting the reinforcements around, repeatability and simplification, automation, and then ultimately reusing the resources that you already built. So we've become much more efficient as humans in doing what we're doing. And that is actually what is helping us go faster. And we're always looking to improve, and this is by nature. And now technology is enabling that. And now we're at a point where we've laid the foundation of chips, which actually propelled processing capabilities. Then we use them to build the compute so that we're processing more. Then we understood how important data is in order to process the information. And now we understood how important it is to have intelligence. So that means you have data, but now you need to build intelligence from that information or that data, and that's where AI is. So now we're at the point of creating superhuman capabilities where human capabilities are limited. We're adding and augmenting with AI. Now we need to learn how to use that. So this is the new power that is in your hands, or in your reach. How do we then use it for the better of the world and better of the society and organizations and for people? And now the responsibility kind of shifts from not from innovating, not from just inventing and just deploying, but how to use it to make it useful. And I think that is really what I'm excited about. is that there's so much changing now. The third era that I was talking about, this decade, is where it is creating so many opportunities with AI, disrupting the existing architectures. It's creating new categories. It's creating new opportunities for existing players to either to go into it. I strongly believe most of the existing incumbents will understand that AI is a completely different beast of architecture. They won't be able to really take what they have. They have to augment also. At some point, they see that it cannot really sustain, and M&As will happen just because they needed that new blood
Yeah.
and new innovation, invention, so that they can move from here to the new ones rather than trying to basically change the existing one. Because at some point, you can't remodel a house. After 3 remodels, I'm like, I'm done, I'm tired. And you're breaking things and you're actually fixing it. So that's when the new things will come and extensions and other things. And so that's how acquisitions happen. Smart entrepreneurs and executives are making those M&A decisions. And I tell all of the startup founders now, be very positive around and have that attitude that they're building something completely new and the opportunities will come.
Actually, that was going to be my last question, just to wrap this up. That as founders who are actually building in the space, what would be your key actionable tips for them to actually make the most of it, and especially from an enterprise perspective? There's just so much opportunity, but there's obviously a gap in terms of their understanding of that opportunity.
Yeah, so what everybody's worried about, and I think there's a reason why we're all worried about it, is that when cloud and data and capabilities came in the last decade, we've started creating a lot of applications. Obviously, everything is use case based, and people start building these apps and applications to solve one certain problem. So that created a swath of applications that are sanctioned, unsanctioned. Usage is happening in the organizations. There's some maturity came in towards the last end of the decade to this new decade, is that the sprawl of these applications created a lot of risks. And that risk-averse that I was talking about in the organizations is continuing.
Mm-hmm.
But with AI, it's becoming 10x, maybe 100x more. It's because number of applications or apps and agents that we're talking about deploying is multiplying. And now, if you're a founder building these small agentic applications that aren't necessarily sustainable, then you need to think about it. Yes, you can build something, but is it something sustainable, longevity and ability? And that's what investors are looking at. The other important thing is, are you building a category-defining product? What problem are you trying to solve? Because opportunity for building something like this is not going to come for every time. It's a generational thing. What AI is giving right now for people is to really rethink about the opportunity. It's the same old problem, newer solution.
Mm-hmm.
Every organization, see, the thing is that problems already exist. We've already put a solution to it. But if that solution isn't evolving, as business is evolving and the people are evolving in the organization, new opportunities get created. That means the problem didn't go away. The problem actually perpetuated into a different state.
Yeah.
And that's what tech debt is. Everybody thinks tech debt is somehow magically and nobody cares about it. The tech debt happened is because you had a problem, you deployed a solution, the solution didn't evolve, but the problem evolved. The business evolved, and now how are you going to solve it? You can't solve with an existing problem solution, so that's why you're finding a new solution. And the newer solution happens to be with a newer architecture, more capabilities, much better efficiency, able to do a lot more, and that's why there's an opportunity for founders to go. So that is exactly what happens every decade. I think that is why this is a decade where opportunities are plenty. And I think if you're building something for an existing problem, this is the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is going to really transform the following 2 decades, because we're in an intelligence era. Up until now, we're in a foundational era. We're only in the first era was compute being better, networking being better, communications being better. Then came the usage of those, processing capabilities of those, and the scale of those. Now, the byproduct of those two is data. Now you're
Right.
using the intelligence of how to use that to become that intelligent beings. I think that is why this is going to be even more interesting, because now we're rewriting the chapter. See, we kind of came, now we're going to make a full circle to go back and fix everything that we did with this new intelligence that we got. To say, oh, now I could do this much easier, much more efficiently, then why not? So now the challenge for these existing organizations, these existing solutions and technologies is, what is their lifespan look like?
Yeah.
By next decade, most of these will become obsolete, and the new ones come in, and they will become now primary systems. These becomes the secondary.
Right.
Right? That's exactly what is going to happen. So that's why I'm telling every founder, you're in the right era with the right time. If you're building something now, I think you're building for the future.
Absolutely. Like the patterns will just repeat,
Yeah.
but the scale and complexity will just be another level.
Yeah. For me, so the question is like, how do I see TruPair in this ecosystem of new opportunity, and why is this going to be better for you guys? What I liked about TruPair when I first saw, by the way, Pratish reached out to me after the CIO event that I had, and he loved it, and he said, like, I really want to talk to you. I ignored him for almost 2 months, basically because I didn't know much about it. I didn't have the time. It's not because I didn't have the time, and that was the reason. I was traveling and whatnot. But he was persistent, and so I was able to meet with him and do. And I think I encourage every founder, if people are ignoring you, not because they didn't want, they want to ignore you, just because they didn't have time. So I think what I liked about it is that the ease of product use is number one. See, the problem could be there already. I think what is important is the solution easy to use? That's number one. And number two is the adoption of that solution is viral in nature.
Yeah.
Right? And three, is the capability scalable, in the sense that whatever you built as a platform and as an architecture, as a solution, is that going to amplify the use in the organization? That means you land and then you expand into places where that is opening more and more opportunities for organizations to leverage that capability, that use. And I think these are the three things that I saw as an opportunity, and then that's why I'm excited about it, because the product does something unique. And that's why I was telling Pratish that, when we were having, and I think I also shared with you, is make it easy to use, make it simple for growth and scale, and then start seeing the scale with adoption, and then you can adapt to the use, and then build the pricing, build the product capabilities. Because I think when you're doing something new, it's always like you don't know what you don't know, and you will only build what customers are asking. And I think the best thing for founders is that which you have is by seeking that from the customers, seeking that from the experts, and build it into the product. I think having talented team is really one of the other attraction, and why I'm confident that you guys can do it. So yeah, these are the four things. I would say team, the ease of use, the problem expansion capabilities. I think these are all very, very attractive key elements for TruePeer. So my philosophy is you always have to punch up. You don't know what you don't know. It's important to try, but trying should have some method. Why do you want to go into that? So that means you do some research to figure out, is this the market segment that has the pain? Are they your primary? So because everybody wants to go to the easy route. There are certain problems you could solve easiest way, but then is that, you don't want to get addicted to it, because then, as you're growing, eventually you'll hit the wall. And because your focus was only unidirection, you didn't figure out how to set yourself as expansion. So then by the time you hit the wall, you have no capability to expand anymore. And I think it's very important to know that as a founder, to try and create that expansion capabilities as you're growing, so that you can pivot as you build when things hit to a wall. And that means you've reached a capability that does not have much market fit, or a category fit, or a customer fit. Then you need to change the direction to figure out what that would look like. So I think this is important. So that's why you build verticalized solutions and horizontal solutions, what play you are in. And the most important thing is really making sure this understanding of who your ICP is, and also constantly checking that. Mm-hmm. And evolving, but you need to know where you want to be and how are you getting there, right? And if your only target is Fortune 10,000, not Fortune 100, then you need to build from a Fortune 2,000 to 5,000 rather than building it for 10,000, because then you can go up. Yeah. So always target the middle of the ground. Otherwise, you will end up building something of a smaller capability that is requiring a lot more velocity and a lot more scale. By the time you spend a decade, you would only reach the mid-market. Yeah. And you get tired, and you run into a situation that you hit the market penetration problem. And I mean, that's okay. If that's what you targeted, that's fine. But if you want to become a bigger company and longer, you need to start punching yourself from the middle of the ground to up. And that only comes when you make that pivot very quickly. You enter, but don't spend too long in market. You need to kind of be able to adapt that, and then just go from there to the mid-market, and then stay there to mature the product, then start punching up, so to go. So that's important for this strategy.
Makes sense. I think I have just one last question. So Lenin, like from a CIO perspective, how do you see, like you've seen TruePeer closely, right? Like what we are doing. So how do you see TruePeer fit into the CIO agenda? Like in terms of how CIOs look at digital transformation, change management, adoption of software at the deepest level?
See, with AI products, the organizational maturity is already came to a point where CIOs are now become shepherds, right, of technology. There are only three main buyers of technology in the organization: it's CIOs, CISOs, CTOs. I mean, predominant. And their teams. The CIOs are, and the CISOs, right in the middle. The business technology, customer-based, customer-facing technology, and security being a byproduct of both. And those are the three. TruePeer can fit in all of them. And the idea for you to build a product that has the usage in every department, that has the capability to have an impact across the organization, has a huge potential. And it's very difficult to have that. In an enterprise, that is even more difficult, because you could see this in a B2C, and start somewhere small and then scale and customers and all of that stuff. But in the B2B, you're labeled already, and you have a limited scope of what you can do. But I think TruPeer being a content creation and enabling capabilities of what you have to offer to your customers or what you have to offer to your employees, and because that is where the product fits. Right. So it's fitting for the employees, it fits into the systems, applications. It also fits into the products that are actually being shipped by the organizations for their customers. So that is why TruPeer has a broader potential. And I think, and that's one of the reasons why the CIOs have being the shepherds in this area, then can transition into security products and applications, or even to the technology and the products that are being shipped, and where you could also use TruPeer for that. I think that's why I'm excited about. It's a broad swath of organizational use.
Great. Thanks so much, Lenin, for doing this. I know you already had a long day, but this has been super insightful and lots of takeaways for us, and hopefully whoever is watching this. So thank you so much.
No, I'm really having fun, and I really appreciate you guys having me here. I'm actually very excited for what you have and meeting all the team, and I'm really now part of the success for you, and I would love to be. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Thank you.